Oh, I enjoyed last night. Thank
Good.
you for your team.
No, of course. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
It was a really good group of people.
This is the first time I have an interview with a CEO, a CXO, like you. I will try my best because English is not my native speak.
Of course, I apologize that I don't speak Chinese.
The first question is, could you explain your role as a CXO at Ledger and how you ensure that the user have a best possible experience with a Ledger product?
Sure, yeah, with pleasure. So you can call me Ian. My name is Ian Rogers, and I spent 20 years doing digital music. Products like Winamp and Yahoo and Beats and Apple. Then I worked with LVMH, the big luxury conglomerate, and I moved to Paris, and Ledger is a Paris-based company. And so when I moved to Paris to work with LVMH, I met Pascal Gauthier, who's the CEO of Ledger, and learned about Ledger. What Pascal's vision for Chief Experience Officer was that the experience in crypto is too difficult for a mainstream user. You know, it's for a geek like me, then we can find our way around crypto. We don't mind a little bit of risk, maybe a difficult user experience, but the average person wants something that's much easier to use. Well, if you think about buying an iPhone from Apple, you're not just buying a piece of hardware. You're buying into an ecosystem. You know, you're buying blue bubbles instead of green bubbles. You know, you're buying an experience. And so the idea was that with Ledger, we need to create an end-to-end experience from I just bought a Ledger, I just bought my first crypto, I'm now, you know, maybe I'm paying with crypto, maybe I'm earning yield by staking, maybe I'm sending some crypto to a friend, or I'm, you know, working with DeFi or buying a digital collectible. But everything that I'm doing needs to be an experience that goes, you know, that's simple, end to end. And we know that in crypto, we're a long way from it being easy. It's not simple or easy, and we need to make it easy and make an experience. So that's why the title Chief Experience Officer. So what I came in to do was to try to build out those experiences across the entire Ledger ecosystem.
Yeah, just like I introduced my channel, I just share my own personal experience at the safety to keep your security assets.
Yeah, exactly. And how that experience evolves. How long have you been doing your channel for?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. I'm a newcomer, just 3 years. A friend told me, USDT. And then what is USDT? So I'm a newcomer, but my channel show my real experience, what I do, what I think about. So when I research USDT, then I will show my friend, what is USDT? How to buy the Bitcoin at the exchanger, Binance, when the FTX, the situation it happened. So I think about, do we have a more security method to keep my Bitcoin? It's very important.
Yeah. So, well, and I'm sure as you just said, your experience has evolved in 3 years, and it has much further to evolve.
Yeah, I'm an IT guy before, so I will use my knowledge to explain why is the cold wallet is the security method. So how to make the 24 seed phrase, and why we stay offline, stay at home. Well, I have a Bitcoin address, you can send me. It's very different for the centralized. So next question is, how does the Ledger balance security with the user convenience in the hardware wallet? And what steps have you taken to make sure that even non-technology user can safely store their crypto?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things that we've done is really tried to bring together the world of Tony Fadell, who invented the iPod and co-invented the iPhone, with the world of Ledger, which is uncompromising when it comes to security. And I think that's emblematic of the real challenge, because the challenge is that you really need to be uncompromising, no compromise, when it comes to security. So unfortunately, in every bull market, there are many people who do compromise on security, self-custody, or both.
Yeah.
And they always have a rational reason that they do it. They say, well, the way we're going to onboard the masses is we're going to have, this centralized custodian like FTX, or we're going to have this software wallet that's going to bring on more and more people.
Yeah.
The problem is that that's a compromise. That's not, you're saying, well, security is less important than getting more users. And what we're trying to, what we want to do is to, make sure that we're getting the maximum users. And so really we want to say, no, we're not going to compromise on security or self-custody, but we're going to bring these two worlds together. We have the Ledger team who says, security can never be -1. It always has to be, +1.
Yeah.
And then we have Tony Fidel and team who say it must be easy to use.
Yeah.
And you try to put those two worlds together. And I think really Ledger Stax, it represents that, because I think if the Ledger team had built this by themselves, it wouldn't be as beautiful. And if Tony had built this by himself, it wouldn't be as secure.
So give us the Apple DNA.
The DNA of saying it must be fun, it must be pleasant to hold in your hand. The user experience must be something that doesn't feel like it was created by me and you are very technical people. It needs to feel like it was created for not for me and you, but for my sister or someone who's less technical.
So at the first generation of the Ledger, actually, honestly, it's hard to use it. My audience told me it's harder to use it than.
And I think look, the Ledger Nano, which has been very, we've sold 7 million of them, so it's been very successful. Still, it's for a more advanced user. To click OK, you use your two thumbs. That's not what most users are accustomed to. So that's why with Stax and Flex,
it's very different.
It's a touch screen.
It's touch screen.
People are very familiar with a touch screen. So you can say, oh okay, I know how to use this. I read the words, I touch the words. Okay, I no problem.
The third question is, Ledger is known for its strong security filter, but how do you engage with a user to educate them about the importance of the security their assets? What tool or resource the Ledger offers to support this?
So the question is, how do we communicate and educate our users on security? It's a great question. It's difficult because not everyone, unfortunately, people think about security after they have a problem, not necessarily before.
So need a lot of education.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but all of the events of 2022 did a lot of work to educate people about why Ledger is important. You had things like Celsius goes illiquid in May of 2022. You had Solana was hacked in August of 2022. You had FTX in November of 2022. You had Silicon Valley Bank in early 2023. All of those things, educated people on why Ledger. Why is security important? Why is it important? Why is self-custody important? Why maybe I shouldn't even trust my bank? All of those things. So then what we try to do is to give people education on, why security, why self-custody, why Ledger. Again, the trick is doing that without being like, you're doing the wrong thing, or let me scare you. It's like, well, you need to have a more positive.
More and more important to it.
It's just, you try to tell people, look, that's why we use the word uncompromising, freedom from compromise, because that's where we want you to be. If you really think about it, there's only two options for your crypto. One would be a custodian that you really trust. I can't name 5 custodians that I really trust in the whole world, right? The second would be secure self-custody.
Yeah.
Everything else is truly crazy. You know, why would you have a custodian that you don't really trust? Why would you have self-custody that isn't really secure?
Yeah.
That's not smart, right? So you need to either have a very trusted custodian or secure self-custody.
Yeah.
So we educate people on why Ledger is the most secure self-custody. I'm very lucky because Ledger is the most secure. There's not a second best, right? And you know, Ledger is really a more superior architecture than any other self-custody products. So you know, it's as long as you can. The difficult part is explaining that to people and getting them to understand why Ledger is different and why Ledger is better.
How does the Ledger engage with the growing Web3 ecosystem, and what role do you see the Ledger playing in the security, decentralized application, and digital identity?
The great promise of blockchain is it's not only speculation on digital value, right? I mean, the great promise of blockchain is we have this new invention, scarce digital assets, and we can use them for all kinds of things, right? We use them for, you know, digital collectibles. We use them for real-world assets. It'll be the future way that we have ownership in companies, and ultimately our identity. You know, identity is ownership, right? I mean, during COVID, I had a lot of mobility because I have an American passport and I have a French work visa. So I am the owner of those 2 identity documents, and therefore I could move around the world. You know, identity is ownership. It also, in many ways, equals freedom. And so, you know, being able to say, first of all, that I'm a human. I'm not a robot. I'm not AI. That's one layer of value. The second layer of value would be to say, I am a unique human. I am not a bot who's, you know, when you see my post on Twitter, you can know it was posted by a unique human being and not, you know, a bot and not me with 5 accounts, right? Then there would be, you know, another layer of value, which is I am Ian Rogers. I am an American citizen. I have a license to drive a motorcycle in the state of California. You know what I mean? Like the things that, you know, identity gives you. And all of these will be digital documents in the future. You know, right now it's pretty poor technology. You know, the paper documents that we carry around, or the laminated documents that we carry around. In the future, I will say, I am the owner of the wallet that contains that document. Therefore, I can prove to you that I am a unique human being and who I say I am.
The next question is most frequent my audience asks me, why do we need to trust the ledger or hardware wallet?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, really in the world of digital assets, what you have is you have ownership over something digital. And the question is, how do you store that? Your value is safe on the blockchain, but you know, you have to prove that you're the owner of that value on the blockchain. So the question is, who do you trust, right? Because you have to have trust somewhere, unless you have literally coded everything yourself, which almost nobody does, right? You're trusting someone somewhere in the chain. So you could be trusting a custodian, like an OKX or a Binance or a Coinbase. You could be trusting a software wallet, like a Rabi or MetaMask or Phantom, or you could be trusting a hardware wallet, like Ledger. And so I think that it is important to ask, you know, how do you trust? How do you know who to trust, and how can you trust them? So there's a few things. One, Ledger has been around for 10 years, and we've always been focused.
10 years right now.
Yeah, we've always been focused on the same thing: uncompromising security and self-custody. If you think about it, we're the only people in the whole world of crypto who've been saying the same thing for 10 years, which is we are focused on security and self-custody. Also, 99% of our code is open source. So it's all verifiable by third parties. So you can look at the code yourself. You can verify it yourself. Also, the architecture is known. So the 1% of the code which is not open source because we use a secure element chip, a smart card chip from ST Microtechnologies. So this is a secure chip which has been hardened over tens of years of use by dozens of billions of applications. It's the same chip that's in credit cards around the world. It's in passports around the world. So these secure chips have been trusted by banks and governments for tens of years in dozens of billions of applications. Our code talks to those chips, and then you can look at all of our code to see what it does. And that's the code in the applications that are on the device. That's 100% of the code in Ledger Live. We say don't trust, verify. And that code is verifiable, and it's verifiable by you, and it's verifiable by third parties. Also, when we do new features, like we've done with Ledger Recover, like we've done with our new keychain product, we publish white papers, and these white papers show exactly how things work, and they're verified by security experts. So the reality is that you're going to need to trust someone. So the question for you as the user is who? Is that Binance, OKX, Coinbase? Is it Rabi, MetaMask? And if you look at this case of the software wallets like Rabi, MetaMask, Phantom, they all integrate with Ledger. They all promote Ledger. Or is it Ledger I think if you do the research, you'll find that Ledger has the superior architecture as well as the superior operating system for building applications, and all of that code is open source and verifiable.
是 open source 吗？但是我的观众了解到，Ledger 不是 open source。
So I think he wants you to reiterate that part about open source. Because he's saying that majority of his audience believes that we are not open source. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. The idea that Ledger is not open source is FUD spread by Ledger competitor.
那如何来验证这个 open source 的真实性
Okay, so how do you explain to them a little bit more? Focus on how it's open source.
Yeah, so the architecture of Ledger is, so Ledger has made a choice to have a smart card chip in the device. That's actually what makes Ledger's architecture unique, is that we have a smart card chip. And all of the cryptographic operations are done in the smart card chip. So the key generation as well as the cryptographic operations are done inside the smart card chip. That is unique. There's not another hardware. Those chips are the same chip that's in your credit card and your passport. Those chips are made by companies like ST Microelectronics, who makes ours. There are only a few manufacturers of those chips in the world. They're very difficult to make. They're very difficult to make secure. That takes tens of years to really harden them to know that they're not susceptible to attacks. And those companies do not allow those chips and the code that communicates with those chips to be open source. So those chips contain secrets. Due to that choice of architecture, it is not legal because we buy the chips, and therefore we have to respect the legal agreement of the chip manufacturer. So it's not legal for us to publish a code which talks to that chip. So that is the only part of Ledger which is not open source.
Oh, really?
Everything else is open source. All of the applications, all of Ledger Live, absolutely everything is open source except the part which talks to the secure element. So our choice as a company would be, to use a less secure chip, which is a bad choice. So there are other wallets which have made a bad architectural choice. They might use secure storage, but the cryptographic operations are done in what they call a general purpose MCU, the same chip that's in the remote control for your television. And that is where they generate your key. That is where they do the cryptographic operations. That is a bad architectural choice that Ledger would never make. And so by making a choice of having a better chip, there is a very small percentage of our code which is unable to be open source, but that is because we have chosen security. We are a security company. So we want to choose the most secure architecture and get the maximum open source with the most secure architecture. And that is actually the correct choice. The other companies, that's why this is my ledger. I will leave it sit over there in public. You couldn't do that with a competitor's hardware wallet. Because if I take a competitor hardware wallet to Ledger's Attack Lab, I can open it with a laser. Because they have made a bad architectural choice, and I'm not worried about my ledger because we use a secure element, and I know that that stranger who has my device in their hand cannot open it.
所以我们今天 Ledger 官方 CXO 来帮我们解释这个问题，就希望澄清一下，其实 Ledger 它是 open source 的。我想问一下，我也采访其他厂家的 CEO 过，他们也解释。他们的 open source 在哪里可以查？可以identify 你的那个hash to 去验证它的 open source 的版本是一致的。那 Ledger 在这方面有做到吗？或者在你们的网站上有解释到怎么去验证我们用的这个 open source 的这个 vision?
So he's trying to ask, is there any way within our open source concept where we have a hash or whatever for people to be able to identify that this source code is exactly what we use in our products?
It's a great, it's a great question.
IT guy, so I'm sorry to deep.
No, it's great. It's great. This is what I wanted to talk about as well, because there are other advantages to using a smart card technology, and one of them is code verifiability. So the reason that Ledger is able to do a genuine check, meaning that when you connect your Ledger to Ledger Live checks with the chip to make sure that it's talking to a genuine Ledger chip. Open source is not a silver bullet. It's not magic. Just by being open source does not mean you're secure.
Yeah.
And really, actually, it might mean you're less secure because you are not able to verify the genuineness of the device. So Ledger is able to verify the genuineness of the device in a way that competitor hardware wallets are not. Ledger is also able to verify the code which is running in a way that other wallets are not, because we are using a smart card, which frankly the smart card is not open source, which gives us that advantage actually. So I think there's a misunderstanding in the community that open source is somehow magically more secure. But when it comes to hardware, you have to verify a lot of things, not just the source code on the repository. You would have to verify that the code running in the device is the same as the source code running in the repository. And there's nothing about open source that allows you to do that. So that's where Ledger we have done our very best to make the best possible architectural choices, choosing smart card technology with as much open source as possible, doing as much as possible to verify that the code running on the device is exactly the code that we expect it to be. And that's where you get, from our perspective, and this is where we store our value, that you really have the best guarantees that you have the code you expect running in a secured environment. Because the other thing that you get, which is quite valuable from these chips, is you get, when you're generating your private key, you get value from the chip in generating that key because they are designed for cryptographic operations. You also get countermeasures when you are running your code to know that there isn't a laser hitting the chip at the same time the code is running. So you get a lot of value from having this secure chip, including knowing that the code running on the device is the same code that was loaded into the device.
Ledger 的 chip 的内部才能够去验证它的 open source 是在 GitHub 上面吗？还是
Okay, so he has two questions. The first question is, does this mean that we cannot have a third party verify that this the code that we publish is the code that we are running? The second question is, where did we publish our codes? Is it on GitHub?
Good question. So yes, we do have third-party validation of the code. So yes, third parties do validate, and the code is all on GitHub.
但是第三方验证是有你们合作的第三方，还是说什么公司
Okay, so when it comes to third party, does it have to be people that we are partnering with, or can anybody do it? And if anybody can do it, how do they verify that it is the actual code that we are running on the device?
This is really a better question for Charles.
Yeah.
Anyone can. I'll give the best answer I can. This is a better question for our chief technical officer. All of the code is on GitHub, and all of the code that's on GitHub can be verified. There is some code which we're not allowed to publish because it's the code that talks to the secure element, and that verification is done by the security companies that we contract with to do code review and security verification and validation.
想要用到冷钱包，有一些还是相对比较 IT 专业的人士，所以他们对这个安全非常非常的关心。
OK，
那如果能解决这个问题的话
OK，
那其实有更多的人愿意能够从第三方的验证或我能够 trust Ledger.
So what he's saying that like a lot of his users are actually very particular about understanding this third party verification thing. So he's telling us that if we are able to sort of explain how this works, it will really give them a lot more confidence to use our products because a lot of his followers are also very technical people. So I told him that we are giving him this feedback that we are going back to we are going to take this and then we're going to think about how we can explain this in a proper manner and address this where we can.
Yeah, I think the best would be to talk to Charles because he could answer it for you very. Well, let's do a video call with Charles, our CTO,
okay.
and he can answer it. Will you set up a video call with Charles
Sure.
So Charles can explain it?
Sure.
Here's what I would say to your users: if they have a competitive hardware wallet, come find me, and we'll trade for 24 hours. I'll give you mine, you give me yours, and then we'll trade back 24 hours later.
It's okay.
I mean, in the end of the day, the question is, do you trust that your funds are safe? There is, again, I encourage people to do their own research, right? And by the way, research is not like reading comments on YouTube or Twitter, right? Like that's not research. The reality is that if you understand the technology, then you would then also you'd understand that the architecture of the hardware matters a lot, and then the verification of the code running on the hardware matters a lot, and that you're always making trade-offs. And that you look at the trade-offs that Ledger has made versus the trade-offs that other hardware wallets have made, and from my perspective, the final test is, will you trade with me? Like, I am completely comfortable giving you my wallet for 24 hours.
Okay.
Someone who has a competitive wallet is not comfortable giving me their wallet for 24 hours. I don't know what else you need to know. That is the final test.
其实我还是想问一下，我或所有的这些人用到冷钱包，如果他了解原理的话，我们是知道它的运行的逻辑，这没有问题。但是对一些想要深入的去了解的话，如果我是有 malicious intent 的想法的话，那它是否？我只是说，我们可以说这个 chip 是安全的，我们防范了很多的，但是我只是说，我本身就是个 bad guy， 我就想问一下，那是否 Ledger 是可以拿到我们的24的 C？
Okay,明白。So he's trying to ask, like, given that we understand the concept of what a hardware wallet is, how it works and stuff, he's trying to ask. So, for example, if a hardware wallet company like Ledger, if at one point we decide that we have malicious intent, is there actually a way we can get our users 24 words?
反正这也是个 technical 的 question. It's a very technical question.
No, because the code, that code is the code where the 24 words is generated is presented to the user in the dashboard is open source, and so that code is in public. That said, in any case, and it's important for your users to understand, if your wallet is the attacker, then you are in danger. Right? If your wallet is the attacker, there's very little you're going to do. Right? We don't care who the wallet is.
对，所以我们叫 at first 叫 trust Ledger，trust 这个 company。对。
Whomever your wallet is, you have some trust. At the same time, that code is open source, so no, we could not get your 24 words.
关于 open source 是因为我们专业人士可能可以通过 open source 去 verify 这个安全性，但是大多数的人 most of people 他是没有这个能力的去验证所有 open source， 然后 open source 只是给 IT guy 或者 technology 的人说。就像观众问我为什么相信 Ledger， 我的理由是，并不是说它的技术有很特别，是因为它运行的时间长。一个大的公司，它有这些展台，所以我们可以 trust 这个 Ledger。
No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, you have to look at, our entire business is the security of our users, and we are users of our product ourselves. So, we don't have any motivation. At the same time, that is why open source is important, because you want to be able to know that if the code changes, that it hasn't changed in any malicious way, and you want that to be verifiable. So you do need these checks and balances. Yeah. So it's important, yes, to trust the company and the history of the company, and to think about the motivation of the company, and does the company have a motivation for that? But also, you want to know that there isn't some state actor like a government who has told us to do something that users wouldn't want us to do, and that's why having the open code is also important.
So the simple is, if you don't, you haven't trusted any hardware company, you can trust the biggest.
Well, and also that's where I think the model is important, right? Because that's why the fact that we are 99% open source is important.
Yeah.
So you can see most, and then you go, well, what can't I see?
Yeah.
Oh, the part that uses the very secure chip.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, that's a pretty good trade-off. You know what I mean? In other words, you have to go, well, can I trust Ledger? I think so, but I don't know. So I look at the code, and then you go, can I trust ST Microelectronics, who makes the same chips that are in my credit card and my passport, which is trusted by every bank in the world and every government in the world? Okay, yes, I think I can. So now, on balance, I like that I have the security of the secure element, and I also have the open source of all of the Ledger code, and I have the reputation of the Ledger code, and I have the fact that Ledger has made these architectural choices, which are in fact superior to the choices that the competitors have made.
The Chinese language version can be added to the Ledger stack or flag.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. It is something that we intend to do. So I can't tell you when it's going to be ready because I don't know the answer. It's not like it's imminent. It doesn't come tomorrow, but it is on our list of things to do. And we've made a lot of progress. At the beginning, we didn't think we could do it. We thought it would be too hard to do, to get, other characters, not just Chinese, but also Cyrillic and other characters here. Now, we know how to do it. And the next thing is we need to do it and implement it well and get it all the way out to the consumer. So yes, it's something that's on our list of things to do, but it's not coming before the end of 2024.
You don't need to change any part of the hardware.
Correct.
Yes.
You won't need to change the hardware. It's just the operating system.
The
operating system needs to support it.
Software, hardware support can use any language.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
So,
the magic trick of these devices is that it's the same chip that's in your credit card, but it's doing this, right? It's doing all of this. So it's definitely possible to do this. Also, what's interesting is your credit card is not updatable. It's not like I can put a new application on my credit card, or I can't update the firmware on my credit card. With this, we can update the firmware for new functionality. You can load arbitrary applications onto the device to do new things, new coins, new security applications, and that's what it's all about. And so yes, ultimately we'll be able to update the operating system of Ledger to support Chinese language.
所以我的观众没有买 Ledger 有一方面原因是说，他告诉我 if they have the Chinese language, they can buy it.
Okay.
It's a good vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Ultimately, we will make it happen.
Okay.
And I will be sure to tell my product team exactly what you just said.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your interest, and thank you to your audience for the great questions.